Testing 1 2. Okay, it is 6 o'clock, and I will call the January 24th North Kingstown School Committee business meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is to go into executive session, and so I move that we go into executive session pursuant to RIGL 42464 for discussion of any discussions of job performance, character, or physical or mental health of a person or persons, provided that such persons or persons affected shall have been notified in advance in writing and advised that they may require that the discussion be held in open meeting pursuant to RIGL 42465A1, Interim Superintendent Search. Item 2, sessions pertaining to potential litigation/legal advice and collective bargaining pursuant to RIGL 42465A2, NEA NK negotiations. And item 3, discussions pursuant to RIGL 42465A3, matters related to security and safety. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. A second from Mr. Case. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me in the salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, can the clerk please do the roll?
Earl.
Here.
Mr. Case.
Here.
Ms. Hoskins.
Here.
Mrs. Lima. Here. Mr. Briotti.
Here.
Mrs. LaPierre. And Gabe Anthony. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And the calendar?
The next school committee business meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, February 7th. And then we have a CLAC meeting on Tuesday, January 31st.
Great, thank you very much. And so the next item on the agenda is citizens' comments. And so, Joni, do we have the list? No? Okay, so there's no one signed up at this time. If that changes, we'll be sure to let folks know. So the next item on the agenda is superintendent's report, and so I will turn it over to our interim superintendent, Ms. Sapala.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Oh, and thank you so much for the additional microphones to Mr. Waterman and their team so that everyone can hear us. And thank you for that suggestion again.
So thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me? First thing I'd like to talk about is budget calendar. So committee, we were able to, this same document that I put a hard copy of in front of you today is later in your agenda as you may vote on it. So you asked me to look at a couple of things, and I think we have to look at things in conjunction. So you asked me to look at a possible budget calendar, but I also had to align that with a possible new school committee meeting calendar. So I offer, again, these suggestions for budget. As you all know, without a director of finance, the controllers and Michael, as the COO, and myself are working diligently at the budget and making great progress. We have some hard due dates with our town, and I reviewed the town calendar, and there is at least the following information that I was able to take from the website, that March 16th is a hard date of budget work sessions with the school and town. That's a Friday, I believe. It's an all-day kind of a several-hour workshop that we must have a budget to show them. And then on March 20th, the town council intends a preliminary budget adoption. Now, again, those were on the website. That's where I got my information. You may have other information from that. And I tried to back everything up from that point to give the school department as much time as possible to continue to work on the budget. So I'll be happy to take questions, and I think we should focus on the budget piece, which is the bottom of the sheet, and then move up to the top of the sheet to see how that impacts meetings.
Thank you so much. And the school committee meeting calendar is on the agenda for later. I do not believe any action will be taken on what's presented in front of you, but you can ask any questions, and then we can do follow-up with the town as needed. So if anyone has any questions for Ms. Sapala regarding what's presented or any feedback, we would take that at this time.
Just on the budget part, right? Not on the calendar part, right?
Yes.
Just on the budget part right now. If you have clarifying questions on how the two work together, you could ask those, but then later we'll be talking through the full calendar and what we might need to make for adjustments.
My only question was on the March 7th date. That is a religious holiday, so to schedule a budget discussion that night, I think would be difficult.
So what would you suggest for that?
Either the following day, if possible, the 8th.
That's a wellness committee day.
But that's at 4:30. Right? So it could be after?
4 to 6.
Could be after, right?
Okay, so why don't we actually, because that aligns with the suggested schedule, and so that's going to be a calendar conversation anyways, and so let's just focus on the, kind of trajectory of what was being proposed and if we are even comfortable with us reaching out and seeing and making sure this works as far as the budget timeline. And then we'll go back to the calendar stuff because that will affect it, but we'll just need to make sure to be very cognizant of that. We need to have a meeting around that date to have the school committee
rest of them
discussion
fall
to
through.
make sure that we stay on the schedule. So as long as I think we're cognizant of the below dates, that'll help us have the calendar
Back into
conversation
your-
earlier. So if you have any questions about why the budget timeline needs to change or any concerns, I would suggest those now, and then we'll talk about the calendar later. Anything else, or is that fine for now? Okay, and Andrew, as far as the officialness of what is presented in front of us, do we need to, can we check actually and see if that was the calendar for the budget was approved? I don't think it was, so I don't think there's any action needed, but just to make sure that the prior school committee hadn't done anything that we need to amend?
Yeah, I'll take a look at that. I don't believe you do.
You know, my typical experience is that the superintendent prepares a budget, you know, a series of dates that budgets are presented and that you work on them, and that it's not usually voted upon. But just for the audience, we would present a full budget here on February 22nd, if that is in fact a school budget meeting day, the 21st or the 22nd. We'll discuss that later. The committee would have 2 weeks to really take a look at that and think about that budget. Have it come in for a discussion of budget and talk about budget amendments in the public, so 2 weeks later on March 7th or 8th, and then another week later come back for a final vote. That is a very quick turnover for us to be ready to sit with the town on March 16th. And I think what we would need is an understanding that it might not be perfectly tied up in a bow, but you would have voted the night before, and we would have our figure, and plenty of information to be able to sit shoulder to shoulder with our town officials. It's that kind of a working relationship. So usually after a budget is finalized, you need a couple days to finalize that final product. But if we're sitting here, we're doing it, your superintendent is here, he knows enough to lead that conversation. I feel comfortable. It gives us the time up front to get the budget done properly. Does that make sense? I mean, you have all lived the North Kingstown budget experience. I'm doing it based on my previous districts.
I just have some questions about the calendar that you're proposing, just because of where these dates fall as well. So that's my only concern.
So how's the progression for a budget presentation, 2
Right.
weeks later, adjustments, 2 weeks later, a vote?
Right.
1 week later, a vote. And you'll get to talking about the whole calendar later in the meeting. Okay.
Hold on one second. Jenny, do you want to think for a second and then I can come back to you, or do you want to?
No, that's fine. I have more questions about the
top.
suggested calendar.
Yep.
I understand where you're coming from with the budget calendar and the time frame that we have, and just as long as it aligns with the town charter, and I know their dates are pretty set, that we have to have it by the third Wednesday of May or
March.
March.
Yep. So Andrew,
days
can you confirm that, you know, what we're presenting here today for the budget part of it is aligned with what we would need to do to align with the town, excuse me?
Will do.
The only thing that I would say is based on documents I read from the past. In the past, you have presented your budget to the town manager by the last week of February. I do not know if that is charter-driven. I'm taking it from anything I can find. The dates that I did actually find as to hard dates are March 16th and 20th of this year that we have to be there to have a function with the town manager. But that whole charter piece, Jenny, and then the knowledge of, I think there would have to be a conversation, could the school department have until February 22nd to give that to the town manager? I do not know if it is charter-driven or not, and I'd hope that a member of the committee, the chair perhaps, could have that conversation after Andrew has checked the charter. We really do need it. I hope you understand that. We are working diligently, but need that extra time without a finance director.
Yeah, great point, Jenny, and we can definitely, we'll double check on that, and then if able to, we'll have that conversation most certainly. Any other questions or comments regarding the budget piece? Again, a reminder, we're going to talk about school committee meeting calendar later in the agenda, so we don't need to talk about that, but we will reference this when we are talking about that later. Any other thoughts, comments? Okay, thank you so much for preparing that, and we appreciate so much all the work that folks are doing to make sure that we are able to do a budget during this time. So thank you for all the effort to the staff and yourself on this. And then back to you.
All right, I'm going to give an update on administrator search to our audience and to the committee.
Just 1 second. Is the volume on that microphone, can you all hear it correctly? Is it, okay, perfect, thank you.
I do have a voice that I could project even better if you'd like me to, though. All right, so administrative search. Tonight, later in the meeting, I'll be making a recommendation for a director of human resources this evening. So that hopefully will be a check on that one opening at our central office. Tomorrow, a small interview team will be interviewing for the second time 2 finalists for the principalship of Forest Park. So they're strong candidates, strongly recommended by the committee. Hopefully we'll be able to come before this body on February 7th with a recommendation for the Forest Park principalship. Thursday night of this week are interviews for the Wickford Middle School principalship. Dr. Jody Clark is heading that. We'll hopefully be looking at an appointment at the second February meeting for the Wickford Middle School, as long as we have strong enough candidates to bring forward. Next Monday and Wednesday, I am heading the interview process for the new Assistant Superintendent of Schools. 7 strong candidates will be interviewed, and I think hopefully, again, we'll be able to come before this group at late February with an appointment. That does leave PPS, Director of PPS. Right now, we are fortunate to have your former Assistant Director, Britta Coombs, as our interim. She's indicated that she would like to be able to leave the district sometime in the late winter, early spring, and we are discussing what next steps we will take for that particular position. Would love to talk with the committee about that, and I think it could be an appropriate conversation in an executive discussion about how we get through the next couple of months in that process. So I would love it if we could have that conversation. There are a couple of different models we can look at. We are trying to find other interims, but fiscal directors and special ed directors in this state are few and far between. And those are 2 critical areas. So we could do some creative thinking and some creative problem solving about how to deal with that position. Any questions?
Just one question. For the principalships in the 2 different schools, are there community members on the search committee that are representing the different school bodies?
So yes, on the Forest Park principalship, there was definitely a parent representing that group. Shelley Koza, I'm not.
Oh, no names.
I
No,
don't have
just
give
wanted to
you
make
the
sure they were
name, but
represented.
Yes, there was the one on from Forest Park. Yes, there is one parent on Wickford Middle School. On the Assistant Superintendent Committee, there are 2 parents. Later on, we'll have a discussion about a school committee role there as well. We did have a PPS committee, and there was one of the co-chairs of CELAC on that committee.
Thank you so much.
So I'm on to district update and recognitions. Before I do that, I do want to mention to the committee that once again today, we called our auditors to see what the status of our management letter and our draft of the audit is. And once again, Kyle Connors said, absolutely, it's on its way. Finishing up some final things. We should have it in your hands shortly. And we said, what does shortly mean? And he said, a couple of weeks. There's no problem with the audit. They're just finishing up their details. I reported that to you 2 weeks ago. I thought I'd have it today, and we don't. They do many audits, but that was his message today. So some of my district pieces, I'd like to invite any parents of students in grades 6 to 12, but actually any grade level, to an open forum for parents to take a look at new health curriculum materials. It will be here at North Kingston High School in the Media Center on Thursday, February 2nd from 6:30 to 7:30. It's advertised on our website. I believe every school will be advertising it. The health curriculum has been meeting for almost a year, looking at certainly realigning our curriculum to the Rhode Island standards and national standards and looking at new materials. So it's a very important time for parents to come to an informal and formal presentation. We're going to do a little bit of both. We would love to share the materials, have you take a good look at them, and also our policies relative to health curriculum and your children's participation in it. Most particularly, parents have the right, if they wish, to opt the children out of particular parts of the health curriculum. We'll explain that, all your options. We do have some nice resources to show you, and that's what we would like to invite all parents, but in particular, the resources are focused on 6th through 12th graders.
Thank you so much for that, Kathy. Just one quick question. If folks are not able to attend that one meeting, is there ways that they can, or who should they share information with if they have questions, or are there any alternative ways to get that information?
Could we take that meeting? No? No? Okay. Okay, we'll talk about that. So Dr. Jody Clark is heading that particular committee, so I would say the questions could go to her. I'm very involved, but I think that I would rather see the questions go to her first, and I'll take them, a second time. Right. Kind of on another health issue, committee, on December 5th, we did receive from the Rhode Island Department of Health, as we frequently do, instructions and suggestions for how to deal with the flu. How to deal with the flu from a nursing standpoint and from the expectation that the district might have for doctor's notes coming back. So I just wanted you to know that we did receive that on December 5th. We did share it with our nurses, and the recommendation was that sick and injured children, because of the reduced access that they have to medical care when the system is overburdened, that the recommendation would be that doctor's notes are not needed for most respiratory illnesses in school-age children, and we certainly are following that.
Can I just make one comment? Thank you for sharing that. And I just wanted to point out that at Dialogues in Democracy Night, there was actually a student who did her whole project on that. And it was pretty neat to see that tie into something that had actually happened. So that I just want to give a shout out to Elisa Hernandez for doing her project on that.
So I wasn't able to be at that evening. So I would love anyone on the committee, because that's a shout out, the Democracy Night that was here last Thursday. So I'd love anyone on the committee who would be able to recognize and or comment on that evening to do so right now.
Yeah, I'll also defer to the other members that were able to go. So thank you so much to the wonderful students that put together their presentations. The students did a wonderful job doing poster presentations on issues that were important to them. They worked through the problems, thought of solutions, and presented them to their families, community members, and invited elected officials to attend as well. And I thought they did an excellent job of outlining what was important to them, and definitely want them to know that their hard work was not unnoticed and that we made lots of notes of things to look at in the future and to be able to address. So student voice is extremely important. This was a great way for them to organize and get their voice out. And we're really looking forward to hearing more from students regarding things that they would like to see changed or altered in the schools. So bravo to them and to their amazing teacher, who I know is Mr. Verrier, correct? Who's the one that, is there other folks that should be shouted out in that area? I think it's just Verrier, right? Yeah. And so great job, and I would turn over to any of the other members if they would like to give any recognition for that program. Tom?
This is my first experience with that night. I had heard great things about it, and I was not disappointed at all. And I'm really glad that you commended Mr. Very. This district is incredibly lucky to have teachers of that ability, and they're able to inspire the kids. I had conversations with several folks. I was looking for the ones that had been considered to be outstanding and that were honorable mentions, but I also spent a lot of time just talking with kids about their projects. One young man had a really interesting take on the Electoral College, and we had a little conversation, and I hope I gave him some ideas to think about. Probably not, but I can't get over how good these children are, and we are raising a generation that I think is going to be well-educated and well-versed. Certainly those who take Mr. Very's class are very fortunate for that. That's what I had to say.
Thank you. Any other recognition in that area, or we'll turn it back over to Ms. Sapala? Thank you. Go ahead.
So the final recognition I have is that last evening, around this time, 26 4th through 8th grade winners or alternates from their school spelling bees that happened last month competed here on the stage. I attended as a grandparent, not as your assistant superintendent of schools. It was run by the Fish and Cove School. A fantastic way that this is done. A school takes it over for the year and does everything about it. Honestly, I was saying, who is running the spelling bee? You know, something that I would have to do myself in another district. Beautifully, beautifully done, with full participation from that school. So thank you to the Fish and Cove School for running a beautiful spelling bee. And at the conclusion of that spelling bee, we honored second runner-up and fourth grader Oscar Valverde from Stony Lane School, first runner-up from fifth grade at Forest Park, Ian Dancero, and the first place child in the North Kingstown School Department spelling bee was my grandson, Nathaniel Sapala, from Hamilton School. So it was kind of a great night for me as a grandparent and a member of this audience, sitting over there, and it was a terrific evening. So they are the best spellers, these 26 kids, and they are absolutely tremendous. And I'd love to give you the spelling test that they had to take. And I just have one other thing, if I might, Madam Chair. So before I close my report this evening, I'd really just like an opportunity to address the people who are here tonight and to the staff of the North Kingstown Schools, parents, students, town officials, and town residents for just a couple of minutes. The North Kingstown School District finds itself in the news frequently. The last 2 weeks is no exception to that. And as I reflected on the Bill Seymour article in last week's local newspapers, I really felt the need to respond and once again just try to reframe that conversation. To be completely honest, Bill invited me to interview, and I declined. He wanted to report on the path forward, and I really felt that that should wait to interview the new interim superintendent. However, as I read the article and saw the expert comments about our chaotic school district with a stream of vacancies which were beginning to affect the operations of the schools, I knew I just needed to say something. There's no denying that this has been a difficult 2 years in North Kingstown, but it's also clear that we need to focus on the future with positivity and strength. While it cannot be denied that a school system needs strong leadership, we all know that the best school systems are built from the ground up. I came here in April because I strongly believed that I could help with that foundational support so that the schools could function and thrive. The newspaper reports about me have said that I am no stranger to difficult situations, and that's true. I did join the Narragansett schools after several difficult and transitory superintendencies, but when I went there, I was able to focus on schools and staff and students and parents as we worked as a cohesive group towards common goals. The difficulties in Narragansett pale in comparison to what you've had to face here in North Kingstown. In Narragansett, stable leadership and long-term commitment, I was the superintendent for 10 years, was the boost that was needed. I don't want to minimize the work and the achievements that I was part of in Narragansett, but there's a really distinct difference between the challenges I feel here and the challenges I felt in Narragansett. So the experts interviewed last week warned that the perception will be and is an issue in attracting talent. They said the district operations are dysfunctional. The article said that trust is an issue. Those experts outlined suggestions for restoring confidence and identifying problems in order to find solutions. None of that is going to be easy, and it also won't happen overnight. And I'm not saying that there aren't problems here and or serious reboots needed on many fronts. But as so many are analyzing and criticizing and demanding change, there's one really big part of this school district that continues to perform day in and day out. I've said it before, but I just want to make sure that I say it one more time because I won't be at this table another time. That all through this ordeal, the schools, the staff, the involved parents, and our students continue to perform and do their due diligence. After 9 months here, I can say with confidence that the strongest part of this school system is the staff that works here every day. The staff that keeps at it day in and day out, from the bus driver and the monitor who meet the students at the bus stop, to the TAs who greet those buses at schools and welcome kids to a day of learning, to the dedicated and skilled teachers who plan excellent learning activities for students. Our schools are highly functioning buildings with many moving parts. And while all this stress and negativity has been swirling around, principals and clerical staff and nurses and custodians and food service workers keep those schools going no matter what the issues are in print or social media. And that's the strength of the school system, that's the foundation, and it needs to be supported, and the reason and purpose that we're all here. The schools that your children go to every day are not in chaos, they are not dysfunctional, and we can thank the staff for that. To be honest, morale is an issue, but I know and I've seen that every day good teachers and leaders here get past that. They deliver what we expect them to. They're doing everything they can to uphold this school department. They need positivity in order to keep at it. Do not depend on the new permanent superintendent to cure all ills. That person will be a huge part of your solution, but as I've said, it takes time to get that vision going. We need to move forward as a community now with a recognition of past issues without dwelling on them. To attract a new leader to lead our schools, let's join together on positive projects, like passing the fiscal 2024 budget together, like working with the school building authority to renovate and/or build new schools, whatever your decision is. Let's remember the purpose to focus on student learning and relationships and growth. Every constituency here tonight has a responsibility to that mission, and our school staff delivers on it every day. So don't give up on our schools, but promote and support our most valuable assets, our students. So that's my 2 cents worth.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's always scary when the superintendent brings out a big letter, and there was a lot of pages, but very much appreciate that. And as a parent of children in 2 of the different elementary schools, your words are felt every day, by my children and our family, and very, very grateful for all the work that they are doing. So very much. So we'll move on to item 4, which is routine items, and the first thing on that is the consent agenda. And so there are a variety of items that are there. Would anyone like to exempt anything from the consent agenda?
I would please the business number 2, number 3, and number 4.
Yep, so it's all, we'll just do B2 as a stack since they're all under that item.
Okay.
So we'll just exempt that there. Anything else that we need to exempt? Okay. And so just for clarification, there's no items for C or D, correct? For any approval of bids or awards or personnel items, right? Yeah, perfect. Yep, but that we'll do that one later. Yep, just wanted to make sure that there wasn't anything there. And so all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay. The ayes have it, and then we will go back to item B, which we exempted, and we'll handle each one separately. So first we'll do, I'll need a motion to approve item 1, which is the January 9th executive session minutes.
Second.
Okay, moved by Ms. Lima, seconded by Mr. Case. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. And then we'll do number 2. So do we have a motion to approve the business minutes of January 9th? Okay, Ms. Lima, do we have a second? Okay, Mr. Brady, and then discussion?
I was just wondering, does it need to say on the motion that the motion was actually to accept the resignation immediately?
What page, Ms. Lima?
I'm sorry, I didn't write that down.
No worries, we'll take it. I'll defer to our legal counsel. Andrew, thoughts on that? It's on packet number, page 9, item 4. The question is clarification regarding the motion passed to accept resignation 4-1. Ms. Lima's inquiring if that should note effective immediately.
It should.
Okay, so the clerk will note that, and my recommendation would be to withdraw the motion that's on, unless other folks have other discussion regarding this, and then we will put it on for the next agenda. Any other discussion? Yeah. Approve it with the amendments. Can we do that? Okay, so we'll note that change. Sorry, excuse me. And then any other discussion regarding this one? Okay, so to clarify, the motion is still on the table with the amendment of adding effective immediately to the minutes. And so with no further discussion, all those in favor of accepting these minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Okay, and then the next item, we'll need a motion to accept the executive session minutes of January 10th, 2023. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, motion from Ms. Lima. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Bridey. Any discussion?
I just realized, are we allowed to discuss this in open? So we should probably pull this, and we'll discuss this one separately, because it's executive session notes. Perfect timing. It doesn't say that in there.
You have a live mic.
Your mic's on if you, yeah. Okay, just 1 second and we'll confer with our legal counsel. So it looks like at the advice of our legal counsel, we'll table the approval of that. Did we have an official motion?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so we will, can someone, the person that made that motion, please withdraw?
I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay, and then, so can I please get a motion to table item B3?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so we'll go Mr. Case and then Ms. Lima as a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of tabling this?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you so much. Next item is B4, the business meeting minutes of January 10th. Do we have a motion to approve? Okay, so moved by Ms. Lima. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, second from Mr. Bridey. Discussion?
So for the MOU with the NKPD, I thought that Mike had said when ready, not at tonight's meeting.
Okay, great. So there's a clarification about the conversation that happened. Mr. Waterman, do you have that recollection? If not, we can...
We'd have to go back to the videotape.
Yeah. Okay. And so since we don't know what we need to adjust on that, I would like to ask the clerks to go back to that section of the videotape and just confirm what Mr. Waterman said, and then we will, my recommendation would be to withdraw this motion and make a motion to table it, and then we'll revisit that one at a future meeting.
And then I had one other question
Sure, go
on
ahead.
this one. So in the...
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. No. No, we can still have discussion, and then we can do those actions,
So
yes.
in the part where it's talking about the replacement of the facilities rated at 65% or higher, the text in there, it says that at the time of the 5-year facility index for Wickford Middle School, it was determined to be 56.95% or higher, and I'm wondering if that number is a typo, because I believe that means to indicate that WMS was one of those schools that was rated at 65% or higher.
Okay, great. So there's a clarifying question. And so the question, to me, is not the clarification of the question, it's what was said at the meeting in regards to this, correct?
Right. I guess it's what was the WMS facility index.
Yep. So let's, again, since we're going back to the tape, to clarify the other one, let's do the same for that item on packet page 19. It's about halfway down. If you don't mind, please. Thank you so much. Any other discussion regarding the minutes? Okay, so again, based on the discussion, my recommendation would be the person who made the motion to withdraw.
I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay, so the motion's withdrawn, and so do we have a...
Motion to table.
Thank you. So we have a motion to table for Mr. Case. Do we have a second? Second for Ms. Lima. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Okay, and that brings us to our next item, which is 5, executive session. I'll disclose that in executive session, no votes were taken. Can I please have a motion to seal the executive minutes of the January 24th, 2023? So moved. Okay, motion from Mr. Brady. Do I have a second? Okay, second from Mr. Case. Any discussion? No, okay, sorry. Okay, so seeing no discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Oh, you know what? I think that was redundant. We think we did that technically in the consent because we only exempted B. So it's confusing on how it, actually, no, that's not true. We will adjust this next time we make the agenda. Okay, moving on to unfinished business. The first item is item A, which is the actuarial services bid based on Town of North Kingstown bid. Do we have a motion for this item? So that we can discuss?
I'll make a motion to discuss, yes.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, so a motion from Ms. Lima and a second from Mr. Case. So this item was an item that was previously on, and I will defer to the interim superintendent for an update, and then I also have some information as needed.
So, once again, 2 weeks ago, we attached quite a few pieces of material for you to consider. It was the town bid for this work to be done, and this is the actuarial study of OPEB, other post-retirement benefits that has to be done every couple of years. And so there was a discussion, I believe, with Dr. Paolucci, Mr. Lathrop, or he was involved, Mr. Mollis, about the school department piggybacking on their already put out bid. We are still waiting to get the figure on what that piggyback will be. So you saw all the information, but we didn't get what our portion will be. For information just for you, 2 years ago, we paid $5,700 for our own, and it's usually a 2-year contract, so you pay a lot up front the first year, and the second year it's a much reduced fee of $500. So, you know, you saw a bid for $8,800, you know, in that packet. So there should be something in that range, but we still do not have that piggybacked figure to present to you.
Okay, thank you for that update. Questions or comments from the committee?
Based on that, I'll make a motion to table.
Let's see further discussion. Is there any further discussion on the motion? My one question to Kathy is not moving forward on this. I do agree that we need the information, and I know that we are working to try to get that just for some more clarity. Is there any downside, or is there any action needed from the school committee to make sure that we're continuing things on a timely manner and that we're not postponing anything, just to make sure that we're aware of what's happening on the other side?
We can go out to bid and do our own if we have to. There's, you know, we have the format that we've always used in the past. We'll do that if we don't have something in a matter of weeks with your recommendation.
Any further discussion on this item or questions?
Would it make a difference or behoove us to send a letter to the town asking officially for the information? I mean, I know we've tried to do this over the phone, maybe, but
Our
maybe
controller has sent several emails, and we don't have the information.
Okay.
Yeah. So that is an option, Rob, that we could do. I did reach out to the town manager today and got very prompt response with confirmation, like conversation, but was not able to get the information that we needed. And so I don't think official correspondence would hurt. And so, you know, if that's something that the committee would like to do, we could definitely can request that. Or to Ms. Apollo's point, we could just wait, and then our next agenda item, or our next agenda, if we don't have the information we need, we could, I don't even know if we would need an official approval to go out to bid based on the number, but if we did, we could do so.
I think you'd just tell us to go through that process, and the next thing you'd see would be the bid.
Yep. Yeah. So any discussion regarding official correspondence, or we'll just continue to work through the administration office and the town manager? Okay. So we do have the motion on the floor. So I believe, Ms. Lima, did you say you wanted to table it? Okay. So can you withdraw your motion officially? Or, yeah, so Andrew, just Is a motion for discussion, do we need to do anything, or then we just need a motion to table?
New motion to table.
Okay, so can I please have a new motion to table item A in this section?
So I just
Yeah.
need a second.
Okay, so we just need a second. So Ms. Lima has the motion, second. Mr. Case, any further discussion? No discussion. Okay, and so all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, item B is the RST Athletic App Contract, 1/24/23, which is today. So we'd love an update on that, and I'll turn that over to Mr. Waterman.
So within the past 2 weeks, we have made some progress. We initially had made progress with the Apple version of the app, followed a few days later with the Android version. Currently, the wrestling and girls basketball team is using and demoing the app. One of the challenges that we are finding is that when students were registered for activities, they were registered using a parent's email address. So when the kids go to log in to the app, it's not recognizing their student email address. So moving forward, for those of you listening who will be registering students in the future, please use their student email address. It'll save a lot of work now. But we are working through, we're trying to determine right now if the reason the kids aren't getting the notifications and parents are getting them instead, which was one symptom of an earlier problem, is because of actual bad data versus a non-functioning app. So we are moving in a positive direction. It is working. We just want to work out all of the bugs before we release this on hundreds of kids.
Okay, thank you for that update. Any questions or comments?
No, I would just say, Mike, can the coaches let the students know when they sign up for things, or like have a printout of what they should be signing in as an email?
Yes, so we're actually working with the vendor to see if, when it comes to the student email addresses, if we can back code so it would just be first name _ last name, and @students.nksd.net is not even an option for them to put something other than that.
Okay, and so I believe you just clarified this, but the students have to manually do it themselves. There's not a way that you can upload official, like register students in bulk for the different sports teams to make sure that the accurate information's in it?
No, this is something that when you sign up to try out for a team, this is you indicating there's also medical information. There's a lot of other information. And a lot of times, once you've established an account, you don't have to repeat the same process over again. So if we're dealing with seniors, they may have registered 4 years ago. So there will be a transition as we clean up, but we're finding where that data is and how to clean it up. So as we roll out to other teams, we're hoping that we will fix that on the back end before rolling out any further.
Okay, thank you for that update. And so this item was the RST Athletic App Contract. And so I believe the action that we're looking for tonight is a renewal of that contract, correct? Or is there any action needed from the school committee?
There's no action needed.
All right.
We have not.
It's just an update.
We're not being charged for it until I give them the thumbs up that everything is properly functioning.
Okay. Go ahead.
Can we just make sure that we keep this on future agendas just so we can continue to get updates? I think it's important. I think it's an important app that needs to go out. It was, we're behind in getting it out. So I think we should just make sure that we get regular updates on this. I'm glad to hear that we are moving forward in a very positive direction, though. So that's good news.
So because this is under business, do you want to make a motion regarding the athletic app? It could be something as simple as that, but to kind of officiate it, or do you want to?
Well, I can make a motion that we put this on future agendas to get regular updates on the app. So that would be my motion.
Great, thank you. Do we have a second? Okay, so motion from Mr. Case, second from Ms. Lima. Any discussion regarding that request? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. And thank you so much, Mr. Waterman, for that update. And it sounds like we're making some progress, so I'm glad to hear it. The next item on the agenda is the CIP/existing bond/future bond. This is under unfinished business. So, Mr. Waterman, when you give an update, if you could just clarify if any action that you're requesting is needed. If not, you can just provide your update, and then we can, if the committee would like to make any, motion for action based on what we hear from Mr. Waterman, we can do so at that time.
And I believe we have, under new business, we may dive a little deeper into this. So under CIP Capital Improvement Plan, we are due this week, this Friday, an updated plan that gets updated every 5 years. So we are anxiously anticipating that. I have no update at this time on existing or future bond.
Any questions regarding that to Mr. Waterman? And there is some other items that might be addressed later. Jenny?
Mr. Waterman, can I just ask about some discussions that we've had about this capital improvement plan and adding certain fields at the high school?
So I haven't seen the plan yet, so I don't know what is on it yet.
Okay.
So once I see it, right now I wouldn't,
Okay.
I can't even update on that
All right,
because I haven't
thank
seen it yet.
And it sounded like, I think, clarification that you anticipate to get that around the February 15th-ish date?
January 27th.
January 27th. And so is that something that we could have on this February 7th agenda? Or is it?
As long as I don't have questions or have to send it back, I have no problem adding it to the agenda.
Perfect. So we'll put it on, and if it's just an update, and then, but we would love to hear an update for that in the future when we receive it. Any other questions or discussions regarding this item? Okay, so we will move on as no action is needed. Item D is the NSDEC Superintendent search, and so I will give a brief update, and then we, as the committee, can decide what action, if a motion is needed, if we want to take action on this item. And so for those of you in the audience and those of you up here, we are officially kicking off the resurgence of the superintendent search process. And when the former school committee had this search, they had contracted with this company, and when that search was not successful, the way that the contract was written is that we would continue to work with them. And I would give them kudos. The person that we've been working with there has been extremely responsive and helpful in reestablishing this. And so in the agenda packet that you all received, you'll see a lot of background information that the previous committee had worked through, and also some of the previous steps that have been done that, due to the kind of closeness of the time, they recommend that we can make some small tweaks, et cetera, but that we don't need to go back to square one, if you will. Also in the packet, you'll see a timeline, and you'll see that adjusted kind of based on what work had been done previously and kind of where we are at right now. And what we are looking for now is any thoughts or comments regarding this. We would provide that back to the company, and also if the community members or anyone has questions regarding the search, please forward them to us. And then we would have a representative from that company come to our next school committee meeting to work through any questions, comments, thoughts from the committee. And so anything that you have right now, we're happy to hear, and then we will have somebody coming, hopefully, to our next meeting. Ms. Hoskins?
I think my only question is that we have a different person that we work with than the previous person that we worked with.
Okay, just to clarify, are you talking about the representative from the company?
That ran the search for us.
Okay, we'll note that and communicate that to them. Any other thoughts, questions, comments on what's presented in front of you today? The questions were definitely around, is there anything that should be tweaked or changed since the last time that we wrote this, et cetera.
My question would be about their timeline as it intersects with your responsibilities for budget, because they kind of come at the same time. And I know that the committee is not fully involved with the March and dates that are on the NSDEC calendar, but some of you may be, and how does that comport with our budget calendar?
Okay, thank you so much for that note. We will definitely look at that when reviewing the calendar. And with this plan, we would, again, have a screening committee that would kind of work through a lot of those things. And we would be going forward and reaching out to the same committee as the previous school committee had deemed that would be the approach that they would recommend taking. And with that, there was, I believe, one representative from the school committee on that. And so your point is definitely valid, as there could be time conflicts And then also, based on this conversation this evening, we will have to reach out to folks and see about availability and willingness to continue to serve on the screening committee. Other thoughts, questions, comments regarding the information in front of you?
I think originally that's what they did before as well, is that they gave us a tentative calendar, but then once the committee was pulled together and put together, the finalized dates were tweaked a little based on everybody's availability.
Okay, perfect. So I agree that this is just kind of a blueprint, and then once the screening committee is established, looking at the calendars in conjunction to everything else that is going on to make sure that it works to have a successful workshop and meeting with folks. Any other comments from the committee? Okay, and so if you do have any feedback or thoughts that you think of, you can directly send it to us, and we can forward that along to it. If not, we'll have a representative come back and really work through this with us, and in the meantime, we will reach out to those who were on the screening committee to gauge their interest. That way, if we need to come back at the next meeting with alternate plans, et cetera, we'll be able to do so. Any other thoughts or questions? Okay. Thank you so much. And so we'll move on to item E, which is the school committee meeting calendar. And so with that, what we noticed when we were looking at the calendar is that some of the dates misaligned with what was said in our policies and procedures. And so we wanted to put that forth and have a conversation regarding past historical data on why those changes might be made, and then also look at what our current dates are going forward, as we noticed that there was no school on the 21st. And so I'll actually make a motion to adjust the school committee calendar due to a conflict with it being on a new school day, and also to have the discussion of, to look at the dates and the misalignment with our current procedures. Do I have a second?
To what? Because the 22nd is Palm Ash Wednesday.
Oh, I'm not making, I'm making a motion to look at the calendar.
Okay.
I'm not saying, we'll have, in discussion, we'll work through the dates.
Yeah, so second. Yep.
Okay, so motion from Ms. Earl, second from Ms. Lima, and then discussion on the calendar. And so these are where we want to look through, identify any challenges. Our goal is to meet every other, it says on the top, the first and third Tuesdays of every month, and so you can kind of see the current schedule versus the suggested schedule, and then we kind of need to work through the holiday, et cetera. So any additional thoughts on that?
So the two conflicts that I saw were that February 22nd is Ash Wednesday, and March 7th is Purim, and those were the only conflicts that I saw.
Okay, thank you for that. Other thoughts on the suggested schedule presented from Ms. Sapala earlier, and then also an important reminder that we were talking about the importance of that March 7th meeting, which if we are going to adjust, we want to make sure to have it at least close so as not to throw off the budget schedule that was presented.
And it looks like I missed this when we were talking about it earlier, the meeting before that, the budget presentation to the school committee, that's noted there as the 22nd, that would have to be shifted also.
Okay, noted. Other discussion regarding the calendar?
Be that the 22nd as well, for a variety of different reasons, the holiday. And I understand that we get Monday and Tuesday off, but other families get the whole week off, so I'm sure there are going to be many families that aren't necessarily here that week. It just may, whether we have two meetings or a meeting the week after.
Yeah, and so this is where we're going to work it out together, and so that was my concern as well. I would not recommend us meet on a day that there's no school. Our teachers and students and family members, that is a day that I think we should adjust if possible. And so the recommendation was to move it from the 21st to the 22nd, but then we realized that there is a conflict there, and so I would definitely take any thoughts on an alternate date from anyone.
Mike just wanted to clarify that the 22nd is a school day. I think Jen.
No, it's the 21st. So the 21st is the one that it's supposed to be on, and we're trying to move it to the 22nd.
Yes, but we're talking about a holiday on the 22nd, but that is a school day.
Correct.
Yes.
I understand.
Okay,
that.
yep.
It's a school day for North Kingstown.
Correct.
But not every district has school that day, and I'm sure there are families that, even though they.
Yep, no
aren't
worries. Yeah, so I
specifically
think-
Supposed to, will not be in school.
Yeah, absolutely. So Mr. Waterman wants to make sure that everybody knows they have to come to school on February 22nd. Very important. But I think to Ms. Lima's point, she was pointing out that it is a holiday that some of our families might observe, and so trying to be respectful of the 22nd and the 7th, as there may be families in the community that will be observing holidays, and therefore trying to avoid scheduling school committee meetings on those dates. So I'm hearing you on both sides. Does anyone have a proposed date for the so the February 7th meeting is not a problem. That one would stay as suggested. So a proposed solution to the meeting that we were scheduled to have on the 21st, and then we had proposed having on the 22nd, but it sounds like there's challenges. Anyone have a suggestion for that meeting?
Is the 27th an option?
Okay, so Ms. Lima's proposed Monday, the 27th, as a potential option for that. Thoughts, questions, challenges with that Monday? Not sure about the facilities usage.
With any of our changes, we have to be aware that this facility could be already booked, particularly for theater. So that as long as the committee understood that once Joan checks with that, we may have to book at at Vineyard Romano as our alternative if we can't get this room.
Okay, thank you for that.
Kathy, does that give us enough time to present the budget?
So
for
here's
you?
the biggest issue. It's with the town.
Right.
If you look at what I told you, in the past, we have given the budget to the town on the 28th or 27th of February. And I was hoping for that extra month, which is going to take some conversation between the chair and the town manager, or your new superintendent and the town manager. I'm hoping for that, but we push it even a little further. And, you only then have a week to make adjustments. We'd love the week to keep on working on the budget.
Would it be possible to do like the 16th? Or is that too soon?
Where, would
February.
it be possible for us to deliver you a budget on the 16th?
Yep.
Or the 14th?
Right.
Well, not a Tuesday night, a Wednesday night, the 15th, you're saying. I think we were trying to look at some Wednesdays, correct?
I don't think the Wednesday's the driver. I think we were just, when we were proposing the 22nd, I think we were looking to move it just one day.
Okay.
Like, we were trying not to adjust the schedule too much to get off track. And so I don't think that is the priority. I think the biggest priority for this adjustment, particularly in February, is making sure that it's going to work for the controllers and the folks working on the budget.
I would be honest, we were going to be working every day up until the 17th and then be able to deliver it the next week. So I'm not saying it's impossible, Jen, but we do have meetings with all the various groups right up to the 10th. I suppose we could deliver by the end of that week. As long as you would accept, we could go and do an overview and perhaps then give you the actual detail later. I mean, I think we'd be prepared for that. So you'd get this overview as much as we could that evening and the rest in the next week.
Thank you for that alternative solution. I would be concerned regarding that, just because we're going to be very tight on the end, and so if we do need to have detailed conversations going back and forth, I don't want us to get stuck in a situation where you're getting late-minute details from the school committee at a second look. And so what I would recommend perhaps for this one, February 23rd, it's a Thursday. I don't know where that lies in people's schedules, et cetera. But that would
be honest, I'm going to be one of those families that's out of town that week.
Oh, okay, no worries. I hope your summer fun. So we could possibly do sorry, my brain is saying I don't want a Friday meeting. And any other suggestions or thoughts as I process through?
We certainly will have a completed budget for you with Ms. Lima's suggestion for the 27th or 28th. It's all about how does our town respond to that. It pushes things a little bit further. Unless you can turn around from the 27th or 28th to March 8th to March 15th. We meet once a week, and that's doable too.
Okay. So it seems like the proposed date would be February 27th for that next meeting, which would be the Monday. Any thoughts from our Jamestown representative, student representative, go ahead.
As it relates to the 28th, I believe that would be a musical dress rehearsal, so I would imagine the auditorium would not be available.
Okay. Gabriel, does it personally affect you? Will you be in Greece?
No, I am not, but just in case you're wondering, the 28th
Yes, thank you.
would not be, I don't think this
So
space
if
would
we
be
did the
available.
Monday,
Yeah.
the 27th.
Yeah, but we would find a space available and make sure it's posted in accordance to what we need to do. And so any thoughts from the folks on the stage for the meeting? February 22nd, we would be adjusting it on the calendar to February 27th, which is a Monday. Checking legal counsel, any issues with that as far as? Okay.
Nope.
So we're going to pencil that in, and then,
I think that, and we also have to check with the town charter and make sure that it's in line and that the town is accepting of the dates.
yep, oh, for the budgets, yes, of course, yep.
Absolutely.
Yep, I'm just trying to make sure that we at least have the 2 February dates established as needed so that we can make sure that the community has enough time to get on their calendars and schedules, and that then we may need to do additional adjustments later. And then with our next year's one, we'll make sure that we have a really solid plan that we're able to establish, as I'm not quite sure where we get off the first and third Tuesdays, and so just making sure to realign with our policies or change that policy as needed. And so the other concern in this adjusted schedule of trying to get back on track with our stated policy is the March 7th date. Ms. Lima, you had raised that concern. Do you have any suggestions on an alternative?
I would say either the 8th or the 9th, if possible. I don't know what else that might conflict with, but
So I would start with the suggestion of the 8th, which is that next day, knowing that we're trying to do some quick turnaround on different time-sensitive items. Anyone have thoughts or suggestions on March 8th?
So you may have a negotiation meeting on March 8th. I have to double-check that email, but that does run 4 to 6 if we, and Michael says you do. So if we were using Quonset, our offices, you would be able to go from negotiations to school committee. That's going to be the rub at that point.
Yep. Okay, so I personally don't have any problem with that. Mr. Bridie, as the other school committee chair that would have to attend those back-to-back meetings, any thoughts on that? And then Ms. Hoskins, I'll get to you in a second. Jenny might break it anyway, so don't worry too much, Tom.
I'm going to try to make every meeting. I'm not going to fight about it.
I think my only concern is if we have it at the admin building, that it's when we're talking about budget and adjustments, and we may have a larger crowd that we need a bigger space for, so.
Very valid
I would have
point. Yep.
Very significant concerns about having it at the admin building.
Gabriel, do you know the date of the actual show? You said dress rehearsal on the 28th.
So the dress rehearsals would probably be the Tuesday and Thursday before the first weekend. The shows are the Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And there's usually like a refresher rehearsal on the Wednesday between the weekends,
But what-
which would be the 8th.
The 8th. So the show is the 8th, you said?
No, the show is a Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
What's the date?
I believe it's 4th, 5th, and 6th, and then 11th, 12th, 13th. I may be off by a day.
Okay.
It might be 3rd, 4th, 5th, and then
Yeah.
10th,
I think the
11th,
committee
12th.
just has to realize that calendar was set quite a while ago. So was ours. And so trying to get this place may be very difficult at theater time. So we could go to we can't go to another school. The only place we can stream from is
would
our
the town
office.
hall
I was gonna
possibly
say
be an
town hall.
option
Yeah.
on Wednesday night?
Or town hall.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion, because I think Ms. Hoskins' point about making sure that we have space for the community to come, especially in budget season, I would happily reach out, as we have had the offer from the town manager and the town council president to utilize their space. I most certainly can check and see if that's available to us during the theater, which I know we're very excited about, and the students are going to do a great job on.
So that would be for the February 27th time, in the March 8th or 9th, correct?
Yes.
Yep.
Yep, so right now we have the adjustments of what's presented in front of you for this adjusted schedule with the changes to the 27th, and then alternately moving March 7th date to, we'll say 8 or 9, depending on availability of the town hall space. And then for the 22nd, Mr. Waterman, or I'm sorry, excuse me, the 27th, that one likely won't be a concern, or should I inquire about that as well?
I think you
Yeah,
might have
well,
to. That could be a big practice time
Yep,
for the
perfect.
students.
Okay, any other thoughts or conversation regarding the calendar as presented in front of you, and then if not, will we make an amendment, or do I just, to the motion, Andrew?
You can make a motion to approve the calendar as amended.
As amended, okay. And so I'll withdraw my original motion, and then if anyone... Yep.
Just one thing Jen just pointed out
Yep.
is the 8th is also a Hindu holiday, so
Okay.
maybe the 9th would be the better day.
Okay, noted, thank you. Perfect, so, okay, so we will look, so just to clarify,
Meetings? Town council meetings.
town council's on Monday.
And the February 27th is a Monday.
Yep. Okay, well, Mr. Waterman's checking just to confirm. Any additional thoughts on the suggested schedule before we withdraw the motion and make a new one? Front news excitement here with the calendar. And again, apologies to those who have put these schedules in their very busy calendars. Our goal going forward with this committee and the schedule is to set it for what is stated and make sure that we're posting that and sticking to it. And again, not quite sure what happened to get it off misalignment, but glad we caught it so that we're able to have efficient and effective meetings. Anything, Mr. Waterman, on that date?
I'm struggling to find.
All right, no worries. We can just go forward with the plan, and then if we do need to make adjustments, since we have the 7th meeting, we can do so at our future meeting if need be, because we'll still be in compliance for when we need to give notice and post. So let's move forward in the sake of time, and I will ask for a motion to approve the suggested schedule, and just for clarity, that would be February 7th, the 27th, March 9th, 15, 21, April 4 and 18, May 2 and 16, and June 6 and 2. Do I have a motion? I'm sorry, it's 20, thank you. Do I have a motion? Okay, motion from Ms. Lehman. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Second from Mr. Bridey. Any further discussion on the new motion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you so much for that conversation, and we will report back and connect with the town regarding the space. Okay, so we'll be moving on to new business. The first item for new business is the Director of the Human Resources contract. And so do I have a motion to approve the Director of Human Resources contract? Or any sort of motion? Okay, thank you. Motion from Ms. Hoskins. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, second from Mr. Chase. Discussion?
So I would like to just point out a couple concerns I have with this, and I just want to clarify that I have the utmost respect for Ms. Sapala, and I trust her professional judgment, but I have concerns with this. I know that the school committee does not have approval over personnel, but since we do have approval for the contract, I feel it is appropriate to comment on this. Our Human Resources Department has been under a lot of focus over the past few years. It has been called out in several reports, and I think that it's really important that we get somebody in this position who has experience and is able to jump right in and be able to deal with, issues that our district has faced, hopefully won't be facing, but I'm sure this person is perfectly capable, but I just don't feel that now is the right time to be putting somebody in this position that doesn't have experience.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for that comment. And then I will turn it over to Ms. Sapala to give us like a brief presentation, but I appreciate that concern, Ms. Lima, and then we can go from there as far as further discussion. So, Ms. Sapala?
So I am very happy to present my recommendation for Stephanie Russo to be our Human Resource Director. Stephanie is currently a North Kingstown employee. She is our senior controller. So Stephanie has worked for the school department for 5 years in that capacity. She went from assistant controller to senior controller. She is a CPA. She is certified as a school business administrator. but several years ago made a decision and had a career wish to be a human resource director and started to take her courses at Bryant University. So she's almost finished her human resource management program there and will complete it within the next year or so. But I'm particularly happy to have somebody who has been here for 5 years, is not leaving because of the stress, recognizes that she likes the workplace and the people who work here, and believes that she can make a difference. She's, as I said, extremely skilled in the financial end of human resources, which is a huge piece. She has all of the skill that has to go with Munis and School Spring and all of those functions, and certainly that CPA and business mind has it. And she wants to be here. And so I come with confidence for this recommendation, and I understand Ms. Lima's concerns, and I do feel confident that Stephanie is that person who can do a great job in this position.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. Further discussion, questions, comments from the committee?
Aaron,
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Brady.
I respect Ms. Lima's position, but I also give great weight to Ms. Paula's judgment and her background. And the fact that somebody wants to be here is very important at this point in time. And she's completed the courses. She's has expressed a desire to make a career change. Based on what I'm hearing, I see no reason why she shouldn't have that opportunity in this administration, in this district.
Okay, thank you so much. And so I did have just two quick questions regarding the contract. First question was just for clarification for the community. For this role, the certification that you're talking about that they are seeking is not a required item to be the Director of Human Resources,
That
correct?
is correct. There is no state certification that goes along with this as like a superintendent of schools or a building principal or anything like that. It has been the desire of the school system to have somebody who has human resource coursework, and so that's the certificate that she's working on.
Great, thank you so much. And the other is a comment. I noticed that in the outline of it, on the section about the review, the date was stated as September 1st, and I'd like to respectfully make the suggestion to shift that date to December 31st of 2023 with the rationale of the fact that likely with the new superintendent search, hopefully we'll be bringing in someone around that July date, and I want to make sure that that supervisor and this employee have time to work together to really learn and understand if they are going to be a good fit for this role. And so my recommendation would be to adjust that just to give a little bit more time with the circumstances of bringing in a new superintendent.
I think that's actually a great suggestion. And you're looking at Section 12 evaluation?
Yep.
And so the probationary period, having it be a little bit longer so that both the new superintendent and the director of human resources have an opportunity to work together for a little longer time. And that's not an excessive amount of time. Some probationary periods are almost a year. Others are 6 months. So I think that's a very reasonable, good suggestion, actually.
Yeah, and just because of the extenuating circumstances, and also to make sure that the employee gets a fair evaluation from a supervisor that's been able to see them do work over a prolonged period of time. Any other comments, questions, or thoughts regarding the contract?
My one question on the contract was, are there any instances where we give somebody less than a 3-year contract when they are starting out?
There are some. I think there have been in the school department. I don't usually do that, Ms. Lima. It's usually 3 because it's a challenge. You're taking a risk as you make a new contract, and having that stability and that period of time to prove yourself, I think, is important. I think there's language in here that does, even after 1 year, if the evaluation is not satisfactory, and you'll see that.
Yep, I saw that.
Hasn't met minimal satisfaction, that person is given an opportunity to change, and if he or she does not, they could be terminated. The actual word is there, so it's a pretty strong wording. I do recommend 3 years. I think it's standard for principals, and I would coming forward to you with 3-year contracts for them as well. 2 years is a short time in the world of school, I think. So respectfully, that would be my recommendation for 3 years.
Okay, other thoughts or comments on the motion that's on the table, which is the approval of the contract, and it sounds like with the amended date of shifting from September 1st to December 31st for that item. Okay, hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of approving, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, any abstentions? So motion carries 4-1. Thank you. Okay, and then the next item on the agenda is item B, interim superintendent search. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to make an offer to candidate, candidate B.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table to make a offer to candidate B, and a second from Ms. Lima and a second from Mr. Chase. Discussion, and I'll start. Just wanted to give some context to the folks that are watching and also everyone that is here. We had the great opportunity to speak with interested parties for the interim superintendent search. At their request, it is confidential at this point, but once an offer is accepted, we'll make sure to be providing information to the community regarding that, and that is why the motion is stated as such. Further discussion? Yep.
I just want to say, as a result of the meeting being scheduled on a Monday at 5, without first making sure that all of the school committee members could attend, I was both unable to hear from the candidates or participate in the interview process. So I just wanted to let the public know that I will not be voting on this, and I will be abstaining from the vote tonight.
Okay, thank you so much for that. I'm fortunate that you couldn't attend, and if we had known that in advance, I would have liked to do something, as my intent was that all of us were there, but unfortunately, too, with the availability of schedule and also wanting to make sure that we were able to just talk to folks before the meeting today, I do feel badly that we had to schedule it on a date that not everyone was able to attend. So thank you for that and explaining that to the folks. Any other discussion? Mr. Brady?
It certainly was a last-minute scheduling issue, and I understand that, and I was fortunate enough to be there. Contrary to what some people in the public may fear, I think we were really fortunate to get two exceptionally well-qualified candidates, and I'm not going to go into any discussions about them, but I was impressed by both. And I'm really gratified that we do have people who are skilled education professionals with experience as superintendents who are more than willing to step in here and to serve this community, even if it is in an interim role. So I think we're really fortunate. My inclination is that I am going to vote for candidate B, but I thought that it was important for the community to hear that. So.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, we will vote on the motion. So all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstention? Okay, so the ayes have it. Thank you very much. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the assistant superintendent search. And so I'm going to make a motion to, trying to think of how to do this one. So the context of this one is that Ms. Sapala, and I'll have her talk about this during discussion, has offered a spot to a member of the school committee to sit in part of the assistant superintendent search, as there is a potential likelihood that someday an assistant superintendent would become or at least act as a superintendent of the district, which was a very kind and generous offer. And so I wanted to put it on the agenda for us to discuss the who and if we're interested in that offer. And so I'll make a motion to discuss the assistant superintendent search, and then if we do deem that we'd like to do a candidate, we'll withdraw it and then put forward a more specific motion. And so I'll make the motion. Do I have a second? Okay, second from Ms. Lima. Discussion on this item? And I'll also actually, let's start with Ms. Sapala just to give some context to the conversation, and then we can have the discussion.
So you're certainly at the table at the superintendent search level. And I can remember Chair Blasball talking about something that he felt strongly about, that the change in law, the educational accountability law, that then said school committees appoint appoint superintendents, and superintendents do all the other appointments. He felt this one position, in particular, assistant superintendent, would be one that he wishes that school committee had more input into. And honestly, it's this is an appropriate place. I didn't sit on the superintendent search, but I know that Ms. Hoskins did, and it's she understands more. Didn't you sit on it, Jen? The superintendent search? The superintendent. Right. So you know more about what it is like to work with community members, parents, teachers on that board, but I welcome it as the chair of the assistant superintendent search, and I think it's a nice bridge between the role that committees previously had, which was to approve contracts and be more involved in that, and join with community teachers and parents in that screening level. So I wondered if anybody on the committee wanted to serve in that role. Of course, it's next week, but I just thought it would be an opportunity that I would offer.
Thank you so much for that. And Mr. Case, I think you had a discussion before I turned it over to Ms. DePaula. Do you want to go first, or?
No, I was just, well, now that we know it's next week and we don't know when the new interim that we just potentially going to make an offer to is going to be amenable to this, or when he's going to start. So it's kind of a little bit of a...
He's not involved in the assistant superintendent search. He will be in the
Right.
final decision, but
Okay.
he's not going to sit on the search committee. The search committee is set, except I'm wondering if a school committee person wants to join that group.
Okay.
And
And you
so
said
for
the date
cl-
was next week?
It is next Monday and Wednesday from 4 to 8. We do bring dinner. We bring you something to eat, don't worry.
I know we need snacks at these meetings. The town council had snacks last night. So it sounds like we have a offer of, there's two times next week, a Monday and a Wednesday from 4 to 8, and an offer for a school committee member to sit on the screening committee for these this position. And so, again, not mandatory, not required, an offer due to the change based on the educational accountability law, where we really just have that scope over the superintendent. And so, if anyone is interested in discussion, you can express so, and then we can kind of go through and decide if we want to change the motion.
I don't know what anybody's schedule's like. I could definitely do a Monday and would be interested. I don't think I could do the Wednesday.
And we do need the consistency
That's what
because
I
we'd like you
figured.
to see
Right.
everybody. And really, it is a late invite. I do think that I just remember Mr. Blasbach saying that, and I understand. I'm a heartbeat away from I am your superintendent now. That's what I said to you. Every assistant superintendent has to assume that. You do have a responsibility in choosing that person. So we have a very large committee. It's 11 people. So we've got a good-sized committee. A student, I forgot to tell you that, so a high school student is on the committee, 2 high school teachers, elementary teacher, middle school teacher, a union representative, 2 principals, 2 parents, and we've got a big group, but so not necessary, but just wanted to offer.
Yeah. And just clarification on the late offer. The offer came in the appropriate amount of time, but the way that the school committee meets and the fact that I wanted to have this conversation with the committee, it seems tighter than it originally was. So just to Ms. DePaula's point, it was not an afterthought by any means. It's just the way that our calendars fall and what we're doing. And so I thank you so much, Ms. Hoskins, for expressing your interest, and I understand the schedule conflict. I also am not able to attend due to schedule conflicts, and so if any of the other 3 members are able and willing, please say yes, and if not, we will say thank you so much for thinking of us, and we wish the selection committee best of luck in their decision and look forward to hearing information. But if someone is eligible or available and willing, please let us know.
I can do it if nobody else is able and willing.
Okay? And willing, I mean, we have schedules and different things. But so, Mr. Kaser, Mr. Bridey, any thoughts?
No, I'm out the Wednesday, so I can't do it.
Okay. Okay. And so it does sound like we have 1 committee member that is eligible, and thank you so much for looking at your calendars to those others. And again, the contract will still come back to the committee for full conversation, but I do think it's nice, and the idea of being able to sit with the community members in this important decision for the district, which I am very excited about, is wonderful. And so I will withdraw my original motion, and if anyone has a new motion they would like to present for this item, please do so.
I make a motion to nominate Jen Lima to sit on the screening committee for the assistant superintendent.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Okay, so we have a motion from Mr. Case, second from Ms. Bridie. Mr. Bridie, excuse me. Any discussion?
It's next month, just to make sure I put the right date
Monday
in
the
my calendar.
30th, Wednesday the 1st. I'll send you the packets tonight.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion, the ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you so much. The next item on the agenda is item D, the necessity of school building application and process. And there is quite a bit of information in the packets about this, and I will turn it over to Mr. Waterman for an update, and then if needed, we can make a motion for discussion and or action as the committee sees fit. So, Mr. Waterman, we'll start with you for some context. Thank you.
So I'd like to start off by introducing Mr. Bob Carenti, who's here in the audience. He's our Director of Facilities, and prior to coming to North Kingstown, he was an Assistant Director in Warwick, who was also the Construction Coordinator. So I've asked him to join here as he has experience in doing this. I don't know what day was it, Wednesday or Thursday? Last week, we're going to leave it at last week, the building committee got together, and we had a special guest, Mario Carreño, who is the Chief Operating Officer at the Rhode Island Department of Education. He also previously served as the Director of the SBA, which stands for School Building Authority at RIDE. And he gave us an overview and answered questions of the invitees. It was a public meeting. It was posted on the Secretary of State's webpage, but I did extend a specific offer to the school committee, to the town council, as well as the asset commission, so that anyone who had specific questions could hear from an expert right away. So in your packets is the complete SBA process from stage 1 to stage 2, as well as the Educational Facility Master Plan, which was completed in June of 2022. I'm not sure how much more detail, or if you want me to answer questions. If we are looking to, I guess the main focus is at the end of this calendar year, December 31st, 2023, there are reimbursement incentives that will go away. So currently, if we have a project that is on our capital improvement plan or construction of a school building, the Department of Ed would reimburse us 35%. If we hit certain benchmarks, such as newer and fewer, there are a number of benchmarks, we can get up to an additional 17.5% reimbursement. So we could get a new building and only be responsible for 47.5% of the overall cost. So if you were looking at an $80 million building, you'd be looking at approximately between $37 and $38 million would be the cost to the taxpayer. However, we are on a tight timeline in order to meet that goal. The first deadline that we have approaching is February 15th, which would be our stage 1 reimbursement. Last February 15th, we also did, submittal. Last February 15th, we did a stage 1, so we're in somewhat of good shape in that we would simply be looking at the capital improvement plan that we'll be receiving this week, as well as that plan that was submitted last year, and doing some minor updates, I would imagine. Submit it on February 15th. It can only be submitted either on February 15th or September 15th. There are set dates before we could move on to our stage 2 submittal, but there's a lot of work that would have to happen between stage 1 and stage 2.
Okay, thank you for that overview. Is there anything that you want to add? Okay, perfect. And so for the committee, any questions, thoughts for Mr. Waterman, and then we can decide if we want to make a motion as far as how we would like Mr. Waterman and the building committee, et cetera, to proceed on this matter.
I'd just like to say thank you for having us at that meeting the other week. It was super helpful. The gentleman from RIDE was extremely informative and explained a lot of things, so I want to thank Mr. Waterman for extending that invitation to all of us.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Chase.
I was just going to also thank Mike for having that meeting. I'm a member of the building subcommittee, and I think this is a unique opportunity that we have, and another opportunity that Ms. Sapala, talked about for this community to really come together. As part of the building committee meeting, we toured Wickford Middle School, and the state of that school, it needs some help. It needs a lot of help. It needs a new building. So it's something that we have to make that decision going forward if that's the direction we're going in as a group. But this is an opportunity for us to come together on, as everybody said, it's going to be a very tight time schedule and a very tight calendar. But I think with our relationships with the town and the town manager and everything going forward, I think this is a very unique opportunity here for us to get maximum, I guess, bang for our buck for the taxpayer's dollar. So I support moving forward with this.
Okay, further discussion or questions? Okay, go ahead, Mr. Brady.
Mr. Case has said a lot. It was actually my second visit, I know it was yours too, Aaron, to see that school within the last month. And to say that it is in a state of disrepair is a bit of an understatement. So we do need to move forward. It was terrific to have Mario there answering questions for all of us. And I was really impressed with the turnout. We had people from the asset management group. We had Mr. Mollis from the town. There are a lot of people that are invested in trying to make this better, and I'm quite encouraged by what I've seen. And we just have to get on it. Stage one is pretty much ready to go, and we have 8 or 9 months to come up with the rest, and it's going to get done. So thank you.
Okay, other discussion? Ms.
I
Hudson?
just want to concur with the state of the middle school. Both my children have attended Wickford Middle. The teachers and staff there are fabulous and have dealt with a lot with COVID, with the loud fans that they had to have and the windows open all winter for the circulation and things. So I would be on board with moving forward to either replace it or fix it.
Yeah, thank you so much for those comments. Although the school building is old and definitely we need a plan for that. I do want to echo your sentiments of commending the great work that happens in that school building. When we were able to tour the first time, we were able to go during the school day, and that was very apparent of the care and concern and absolute magic that happens in that school, despite the condition of it. I would also bring up another good point that you made was about what the town and what the district wants to do as far as investing future money into Wickford Middle School, as we know that we might need to move forward with the plans that have been presented to the community last June, as far as making a decision about where we want to go direction-wise with the facilities master plan. Because I think one thing that is important is I believe at a meeting, the town did say that they likely would not repurpose the building, and so I don't think the school department wants to invest a lot of money into it, in repairs, et cetera, knowing that it might not have future use in the future in the town. And so I definitely think that this is a huge priority for the district and for the community. To everyone else's points, I think the timeline is doable, but most certainly will need attention and support. And so I think the biggest piece is that, I feel like the school committee, if we feel like we have some sort of consensus, kind of set something forward so that we can start officially having those conversations with the town, as well as making sure that we have a plan and some support for how we would be able to make sure that we can get the stage one revised and in as we are getting the CIP, but then also making sure that we have the support and a plan to be successful in the multiple items that are very laid out from the documents that we saw in order to make sure that we are able to hit the deadlines and make sure that we get the maximum reimbursement. And so I think we have to be realistic but optimistic, but I do think that it is worth at least putting the time and energy into having those conversations and the time, because in this town, we're going to need to build a school in the near future, no matter what. And I feel like it's so important to try to maximize the potential reimbursements that we can get at this time, because it's just going to save the taxpayers of our town in the investment that we need to make in this building. And what an opportunity for us, and I would hate for us to miss out on it. So any further discussion, thoughts, questions? And then if not, if anyone has a thought on a motion that you'd like to make, I would recommend that we kind of officially provide our support to Mr. Waterman in moving forward if folks deem so.
So I'll make a motion, because I agree. I mean, like you said, we're going to have to do this building one way or the other, and there's money on the table now that we can be reimbursed for. So we would literally be leaving money on the table if we didn't move forward now. So I'll make a motion to ask Mr. Waterman to formally proceed into discussions with the town as to what the next step is in terms of the necessity of construction, and to make sure that the resubmittal of the stage 1 application is done by February 15th, correct?
Okay, thank you for the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, so motion made by Ms. Lima, second from Mr. Case. Any further discussions regarding this? Mr. Waterman, does that sound like a reasonable next step? Okay, thank you so much. And so we look forward to future conversations with the town regarding this important item, as well as I would assume seeing a draft perhaps, or at least having some sort of update at the next meeting regarding the resubmittal, as we talked about, with perhaps seeing the documents that you're waiting for. So
The goal would be to have the stage 1 submittal there for your approval.
okay, thank you so much. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any noes? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. Motion carries. And thank you so much to Mr. Waterman and the team for their attention to this, because I know there's a lot of priorities right now and a lot of things, but I think for students in North Kingstown, it's worth prioritizing, and we really look forward to supporting you in working towards this. So thank you so much. Item E, we do not... I would recommend, Andrew, do we need to do anything since this was a follow-up in case we needed action from executive session?
You can just pass on that.
Okay, so we're going to pass on item E, and then we also are going to withdraw item F. That was actually a typo, so apologies to the community. We had a typo, but once your agenda is posted, you don't want to change it, as it's very, very important, but we won't be taking any action on this today, as there was a miscommunication when creating the agenda and getting it posted. And so I would like to, do I need to make a motion to withdraw this one as well? No.
Nope.
Okay. Okay, so that's going to bring us to item G, which is the policy subcommittee. And I'll give some context for this. Actually, I will make a motion for discussion as I'm proposing a policy to formalize the policy subcommittee, but with all policies that come to the school committee, you get 2 reads on it, and so this is just a look at a draft, and then for you all to give feedback, and then we would be bringing it back with your adjustments. And so I will make a motion to discuss the proposed policy subcommittee document. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, second from Ms. Hoskins. And so discussion regarding what we presented, and before we have that discussion, I just wanted to talk about the fact that when we came on, we are knowing and very willing to start working on policies, but one of the things that we could not find documented was an outline for who should be on the policy subcommittee, et cetera, for this group. And I felt like that was very important to make sure that we had that outlined and transparent for the community so that they understood who was creating and revising, or who was drafting revised policies, as well as the process that happened with that. And so This is formalizing what we have heard from past school committees. We reached out to some chairs and tried to find documents regarding this with no success, unfortunately. And so what we are putting forward to you all is just an idea of a concept of what we could officiate. And then once the policy subcommittee is put in place, they could re-review this and then bring it back to you if they feel that changes needed to be made. In the research for doing or constructing this document, we looked at some other policy subcommittees around the state for some benchmarks and ideas, and then also Ms. Sapala and myself kind of looked over and drafted the document as well. And so any questions, thoughts, ideas, or suggestions are welcome.
I think one of the things to note is that policy subcommittee is not a required by law, so it's an advisory committee to the school committee. I think that in the past, it was sort of run by the administration, sort of on their agenda and what they wanted to tick off and get done. I think going forward, we really should table this and charge the superintendent with sort of reconsidering what the membership should look like, or having the new superintendent or interim superintendent be a part of that. I looked at, who we're looking at putting on it, and I feel that, possibly a parent, a CLEC parent, definitely the director of special ed, or need to be on it for various reasons. So I think that those are really important sort of avenues that haven't been on it. Well, director of special ed's always been on it, so, but really looking at having some parent input to it.
Yeah, thank you so much for those comments. Just a clarification, we do technically have 2 appointed school committee members at our first meeting. That was something that needed to be done based on what was provided from the interim superintendent at the time. And then I believe, of course, the superintendent would sit on it. And then it sounds like from what you were saying, there were other defined roles in the past?
In the past, it was the COO, it was the director of special ed, our lawyer. So I'm just thinking that with us possibly hiring an interim superintendent, they may have a say in, or I think we charge them with also coming up with who they feel the membership should include.
Yeah, very valid point. Thank you. Other thoughts?
I think in this as written, it does say that the subcommittee may extend an invitation to other individuals, including members of the administration, teachers, students, parents, et cetera. So I think I read that as, if you're writing a policy about a policy that has to do with, just internal things, maybe a parent doesn't want to sit through that. So, having them come in as needed. But I certainly understand the desire to have a superintendent look at it, but I would think rather than hold up the policy committee from meeting, I'd like to see this move forward, and then it can be revisited by the policy subcommittee once an interim superintendent is appointed.
Yep. Yep, thank you for those comments. Just for clarification, this is just a first review of this, and so we won't be making any decision tonight. So we do have the opportunity to take this, any feedback that you have, discuss it with the new interim superintendent, and then come back to you all with a revised policy. And so my recommendation would be to continue with that process because the timing actually works, but also feel free to provide any other thoughts as well to it. The other thing that I want to make sure is very clear is that these meetings, just as our others, would be open to the public and may include public comment. So I think making sure to include community voice, parent voice, et cetera, and giving that option for people to come and propose ideas of policies they'd like us to look at or give suggestions on one that the subcommittee are looking at is essential. I also think that the choice to put forward a kind of decision about which member of the central administration, as well as the option to bring in folks as topics are like in their area, will give some flexibility, but also will be realistic with folks' time. You don't want to, put in a policy, it must be this person if that is the person that maybe wouldn't be most appropriate or, might have other priorities. And so I think that's why or it's not why. That's why I drafted it a little vague to allow for the superintendent and the central administration office to make those decisions of who would be the most appropriate person in that functional area to weigh in on topics. But I also most certainly hear your suggestions as well as other options, et cetera, and would open to more discussion on anything. And Ms. Salpala or Mr. Waterman, too, as someone mentioned, as someone who used to go to the meetings, would love anyone's thoughts on this, as there's no perfect answer, but we do want to do something. And then, as I said, we could always revise, adjust, et cetera. So any suggestions are welcome.
So I would suggest in your charge at number 1, the only area that I see missing is school board governance. So you're hitting all the other areas that our current policy book question talks about. So I think you've got to add school board governance.
I think that's in there.
Sorry, I think it's
Is it?
on line
General
3
school
and then 4,
administration?
school committee governance. So maybe it's just because the word board.
Am I looking at the old policy,
Yeah,
not the new one?
yeah.
Oh,
So the
I'm
newest, the one that got uploaded does have that.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No, no worries.
I didn't recognize that. Sorry.
Yes, yes. I heard that suggestion, and so
Right.
we made that alternate. So thank you for that.
And I have to say that I think the flexibility of a member of the school administration, I saw the demands of your previous model, and that your special ed administrator was at every single policy meeting, and it drained that person from doing other work because policy is so all-encompassing. And sometimes it wasn't about an area that she was working on. It was a curriculum or instruction area. So I do think flexibility around the member of the central administration, depending on the topics, was something you could consider rather than have it be somebody all the time. And I think that can work with the superintendent as that focal point. I also think this is kind of heavy on the voting piece. So I don't know if you did anything about that, but it seemed heavy on that. And I was looking at, again, the first draft.
Yep,
so.
we did make some adjustments, but that's important for the committee to know, is that this, as we pointed out earlier, is just advisory. They would be able to be kind of the functional working group, and then it would come, any policy changes would come to the school committee. And so when we were looking at different options and different ways that folks do this around the country and around the state, some have very formal settings where like they need a certain amount of votes to be able to go to the subcommittee. And Ms. Zapala had made the suggestion of maybe a consensus of the appointed members would be more appropriate. And so we did adjust that language, I believe, in all parts except for that last sentence. I think that got missed. And so we most certainly can adjust that for the second read.
Yeah, I mean, my work in policy is a lot about consensus at the policy level, maybe not at the work level, maybe not a vote. A vote here at this table. That's where you vote. You can sense at the other levels. And I love the idea, though, of involving community or parents in a bigger way. So, Jen, I loved that piece, and I think finding a way to make that not just once in a while and, not just because we advertise it as something they're interested in, but you might really find some parents who are particularly interested in helping to drive policy in this district, given what's been going on. So finding some way to have some regularity, I think, would be really important. Their voice about policy in this district could really make a difference.
Thank you for those comments. Mr. Waterman, anything that you'd like to add? No worries. Any other further discussion regarding this? I would add to that I think making sure that we are doing timely reviews of our policies is essential, and having some strategy surrounding that. And so once the subcommittee does get going, I would like to see us kind of have the subcommittee do an assessment of, what are the priorities. We most certainly know that we have some that were suggested and made in some of the reports, and those most certainly will be looked at. But definitely making sure that we are updating policies, and also making sure to get teacher, administrator, et cetera, input in those conversations, as we want to make sure that whatever we write is implementable and works for those who are doing the work. I think that's something that is going to be essential, is making sure to have that feedback mechanism in place and making sure to hear from the folks that will be impacted, and utilizing policies as well as the students and families that will be impacted by them, because a policy is only as good as its implementation. And so I really hope that whomever ends up being on the policy subcommittee, as far as the different things that we're talking about, can look at things through that lens, because it is so important that these are not just things that sit on our website, but that are really actively helping guide the day-to-day work of our buildings. Any other thoughts or discussion on this first review? No action needed. I made some notes based on the discussion, but if anyone else would like us to consider anything, most certainly took the suggestion of conferring with the new interim superintendent, so we will most certainly do that, as well as consider through some of the comments that you all made, and then we'll provide a second draft for your review, and then, of course, could be amended as needed on the table or at the meeting next time. Any further discussion? Okay, so hearing none, we will move on as there's no action needed on that item. And so letter H, donation of weight room leg press. So I would turn to either Ms. Apala or Mr. Waterman to give some context. But I'll make a motion to accept the donation of the weight room leg press. Do we have a second? Okay, second for Mr. Case, and then I'll open up discussion and start with Mr. Waterman.
Yes, this is a local establishment, Ocean State Wellness, who has agreed to donate a new piece of equipment to our weight room.
Okay, thank you so much to them and to you for presenting it. Any questions, thoughts, or concerns from the committee?
I don't have any concerns. I think it's great that, we're adding to our facilities. I think I just want to reaffirm that, the school committee policy, the reason that's on here is because we approve any donations over $5,000, and that's a cumulative donation. So if a bunch of little things came in, but for the same thing that all added up to $5,000, we'd be here doing the same thing.
Great, thank you for that. Any other further discussion?
I've looked at the brochure that was attached with the policy. Does anybody know any? I mean, it seems like a very generous gift. Does anybody know anything about the condition of this equipment? Has anybody seen it?
Okay, great question. Mr. Waterman?
This did come through our athletic department, and they did note that the purple color is no longer purple, so I do believe that they have seen it, but I do not know that for a fact. I know that they are eager to accept it.
They are eager to.
They are very eager to accept it.
So they're happy with it.
They are
Okay.
very happy.
All right.
They are frustrated that they couldn't say yes that day.
Okay, very good question, though, because anytime a donation is always kind and very generous from the community, but we want to make sure that it will be useful and productive for the members that are utilizing it. So I think that's a really important question to ask because not all donations are equal. And as far as any upkeep for this item, I would assume we would use it until it is no longer usable, and then it would go through the process of either donating it if it's still able to be used by someone else or removed from the facility, correct, to make sure that students are safe, et cetera?
We would follow the proper disposal, whether that is disposing of it to the dump or disposing of it as a donation elsewhere.
Perfect. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, I will call for the vote. So all those in favor of accepting the donation, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. Motion carries. And thank you again to Ocean State Wellness for their generous donation. And I hope the students enjoy doing leg press. Any correspondence? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to reports. And so the first item here is a special report regarding the legislative meeting with the town council. And so I'll give a quick background, and then if any members of the committee want to provide any additional information, please feel free to do so. And so we graciously accepted Mr. Mancini's invitation to go to the town council meeting last night, what is time? Monday night, where they had invited our local legislators to a conversation about some legislative priorities for the town. And we were very gracious to be accepted as or be invited, as there are so many different things that could happen both at the town level and the state level for the students of North Kingstown. So to have that opportunity and be invited was very nice. And we were able to provide kind of a list of things that we wanted both our state senators and House of Representative folks to look at and prioritize as they are working with their colleagues, both not only on the budget, but also other areas that will impact and affect the town of North Kingstown. And so if any of the committee members want to expound on that, I would welcome that at this point as far as what we had put forward. Jen, any thoughts? Or?
So I guess that would be me. So basically what we discussed last night was we talked about the legislation that Senator Valverde has put through in order to extend the 90-day retirement cap. Obviously, that would seriously help us with Ms. Sapala, but it would also be a benefit to all the other people in the state that are affected by the retirement cap. We talked about the need for mental health support from the state in terms of capping the number of students per social worker and the need for funds from the state or the federal government to fund those positions. We talked about, what else did we talk about? The food, we talked about universal lunch. We talked about how Rep. Caldwell has actually already introduced a bill in the House and how she's soliciting feedback from constituents all over the state in terms of how to do that, whether there's a different way to do that, maybe raising the income level and, looking at the quality of lunches. And she is actively soliciting feedback on her rep page, so feel free to go out and give that. We talked about looking at the statute around teacher termination and the date, and how when you terminate a tenured teacher on March 1st, they're not actually terminated until June 30th, and that if you miss that deadline, they're not actually terminated until June of the following year, and looking at whether it's possible to add an exception for gross misconduct to that legislation. And there was one other thing that we talked about. Buildings. No, that was it.
Yeah, we did mention the plan that Mr. Waterman had talked about earlier, having them look and consider kind of where the areas of impact were as far as the date. There is that deadline right now of December 30th to begin construction and be under contract. And I believe some folks around the state, as well as us here in North Kingstown, know how difficult it might be to start construction projects in the middle of winter while school's in session. And so was encouraging folks to look into if impact could be made to adjust that date to June 30th to provide more opportunity, but also make it more realistic and aligned with fiscal end of year and also when school construction happens. And so that was another one, as well as, the items that the town council had brought up. So again, I think, making sure that the entire committee was aware that of course we were, but making sure everyone knows that we had those conversations and are very grateful for the support from the folks up at the state for North Kingstown, but also to the community and the constituents. That's a really important moment to give voice to different things. And so as you're seeing things come up, and we'll work on ways to identify and notify the community of opportunities to give context to some of these things that folks are working on up at the State House, because I believe that hearing from the residents of North Kingstown can give some context to struggles, opportunities, and different things as far as what is going on and what will impact us. And so we'll be sure to try to figure out a good mechanism for letting folks know that. Ms. Lima mentioned a couple today, but also a great way to stay active and participate in our community that will affect our community and also in the state. And so for other so we'll move on from special reports. Thank you for Ms. Lima for assistance with that. Next item is the subcommittee reports, and the only one on the agenda, because we are putting the ones in between the last time we met, is the Health and Wellness Subcommittee update. Mr. Brady, you're on that one, I believe, and so no need if you don't have any report out, but if you'd like to update us on what happened at that meeting, feel free to do so.
Well, I do have a few prepared remarks. Our first subcommittee meeting this year was on January the 11th. It was following the prior evening's first full business meeting of the year. The meeting was very well attended by community members. We had parents, we had teachers, we had a nurse, we had a lot of folks. We had several dietary professionals, and it was a work session where we focused on refinements and revisions to our wellness policy. Current policy, which is in need of revision, is about 4 pages long. With the revisions, it's going to be a lot longer than that. It's going to be more detailed. But there were a lot of committed parents. There was a parent who routinely appears at these meetings, Ms. Pinero. I had a chance to speak with her during some discussions. I've never learned so much about snacks in my life, which is fine. It's an important part of a child's day. One thing that Our next meeting is going to be scheduled for the 8th of March. That will be a public meeting. It's at 4 p.m. in the administrative building. There will be another work session in May, and there will be yet another public meeting in the spring. There's going to be plenty of opportunity for any citizen who wants to come in and talk about wellness, talk about what our policy should be, talk about dietary issues. All of those things are something that will be available to our citizens. One thing that I'm really hoping the subcommittee will try to do, and I know Jen has alluded to this, and I was very pleased to observe the discussion last night. It's 2023. We need universal meals for kids in our school system and hopefully throughout the entire state. I would think that this is an issue that is not going to divide this community, and that everybody can agree that everybody needs to have decent food in order to learn and work effectively, and nobody should be at a disadvantage in this community because they don't have enough to eat. And I'll just reference one more thing. Mrs. Apollo spoke about it or alluded to it earlier. Our policy will deal to some degree with health, not just mental health, but just the overall health of our children. There's a community forum next week, Thursday, February the 2nd, here in the high school at the Media Center, and that forum is going to focus on North Kingstown's health curriculum for students in grades 6 through 12. There will be an open discussion. This is an opportunity for anybody in this community to have their voices heard about this issue. And if you're watching at home, I hope you'll mark your calendar for that. You have a voice. You have an opportunity to express your opinion, and this is your chance to do that on an issue that's been kind of a hot-button topic around here. So I hope that many people will turn out for this, and we'll be able to come to some kind of consensus together about how that policy should go.
Thank you for those comments. And I'd also like to say it's not the first opportunity. So we've been calling people in to look at this, people that we know are working in the field, community members, and to be good partners to us, people who serve on health and wellness, people in the medical community. So we've had a lot of those people come in and look at materials already and work with our teachers. And now it's the opportunity to show everybody. This is not the first show, but it's a very important one because we have to go slowly, carefully, and thoroughly through this work.
I guess I'm just too self-centered. It's certainly the first one for me. So I'm sure that this has been discussed before. There's one other thing I want to add. We are going to need the technology that's been being used with some of the other committees to record these items. There has been a citizen who has appeared at the meeting and has videotaped portions and then left. And that's, no one's stopping anybody from doing that. This is a public forum. But I think we need a record of what's going on here. So. Yep.
So thank you for that comment. And so the last time we discussed recordings of subcommittee meetings, and we can check in with the new interim superintendent once they are on board. It was definitely deemed an administrative function, and so no approval from the school committee, but with that request, we can definitely pass that along and work with the new interim superintendent on that. I also think it is a good benefit as a mom and someone that can't always be physically present at meetings or maybe different reasons why they can't go in person to still be able to get important information. It adds an additional thing there too. So I'll note that. Thank you very much. Any other updates from the health and wellness?
May I?
Yep.
Just provide an update.
Yep.
We did just receive a second recorder in today. Our intention is for the subcommittee meetings to be recorded and then posted. If you look now at the same place where this meeting is, you'll see DEI in the building committee meeting. So we are building that library. I think with the IT folks, we need to get a calendar of when all these events are so that we can coordinate with somebody on that committee to train them on the equipment and then make sure the equipment's where it needs to be on the same day. So we are building our capacity to be able to do this, especially when we sometimes have multiple events on a given evening.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hoskins, do you have a comment?
I just, Kathy, just on the health curriculum, is that when it's after your meetings and it's put together, will that be then vetted through the Health and Wellness Committee at all and brought to the school committee, or how does that work?
So the Health and Wellness Committee, I offered them that opportunity, that they become part of that. Jen was there. And the whole committee doesn't want to delve into that, but those who are interested have been invited to participate. So they've come to some other meetings and will probably be there at February 2nd. So I would say that it will be coming to you, because it's the kind of a curriculum that you will want to see. But I won't be vetting it through the Health and Wellness Committee. That was their preference not to.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and there is some distinction, and we'll try to provide some clarity going forward on the website or different things of kind of where the different committees land. And so, for example, this curriculum review is with one group. It's related and connected, but the Health and Wellness Subcommittee is underneath. It's a subcommittee of the school committee, and so I think we can, going forward, to kind of try to provide more clarity to folks of understanding what is in what area and what where there's crossover, and then when there's opportunity as well, because I think it makes sense, but maybe to other folks it might not. So I think that's a great kind of question, and then we can clarify that too for the community going forward with website updates, et cetera. Anything else from Update Health and Wellness Subcommittee? And with all our subcommittees, thank you so much for the administrators, teachers, community members that take time out of their busy schedule to participate in these important conversations. I know my son really likes snacks, so the fact that people are thinking about that is a joke, but not a joke. And the fact that there are citizens dedicated to having important conversations about our children, health and wellness is so appreciated. And so that work does not go unnoticed, and we look forward to when that subcommittee does have something to bring forward to us. I would recommend bringing at least a draft forward at some point. I don't want them to get too far and not have any feedback, so we could do some sort of first read, et cetera, to give them some feedback, because I most certainly want to maximize their time and also not make them feel like they worked on something and then had it not be the right direction. And as we've had a kind of school board shift with the elections, just making sure that they have some feedback. So whatever you all believe is the right time for that, we will welcome. And so the next item is item C, the financial reports. Does anybody have any questions or comments regarding that, or any information from the administration that you want to provide? And that's just an updated thing that we'll have on the agendas, so that if the committee does have any questions, it's a way that they're officially getting that information. Okay, hearing no report or questions, we'll move on to our last item. So can I please get a motion to adjourn? Okay, move from Ms. Hoskins. I'll take a second from Ms. Lima. Any discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed, abstained? Thank you so much.